The water pitcher shattered across the floor. Glass scattered under the jury box. Samuel Carter clutched his chest. He hit the defense table face first, knocking exhibits onto Jocelyn's shoes. A juror shouted,
"Sam! Sam! Breathe! Breathe!"
Order! Bailiff, remove counsel. Trial continues.
Your Honor, he's having a stroke.
Then sit down, girl. You're admitted under student rule.
He's my mentor.
Win this case, Miss Challenge Brooks. I'll resign.
Laughter rolled. A phone clicked. A juror smirked. Jocelyn's fingers closed around the pen Carter had dropped. Her father's pen, engraved, WB 2003. She didn't sit down. Have you ever been told you don't belong in a room? By the very person sworn to protect justice? 3 days earlier, Birmingham, Alabama. The law offices of Carter and Associates occupied the second floor of an old brick building on Magnolia Street. Jocelyn Brooks arrived at 6 a.m., as she had every morning that summer. 24 years old, second year at Howard Law, coffee in one hand, 3 binders in the other. Samuel Carter was already there. 71. Wheelchair-bound since the Selma March, where a state trooper broke his hip in 1965. His office walls held 40 years of acquittals, and one photograph he never explained. "Morning, child?" Carter said. "Read the new motions?" Twice. Sterling's going to push for the Carolina Reds evidence first. He always leads with what he wants the jury to remember. Tobias Sterling, 46. 2 failed congressional runs. Hungry for a high-profile capital conviction to launch a third. He worked nights. He sent press releases by 5 a.m. The case had landed in Carter's lap 6 weeks ago. Elijah Hayes, 38, railroad worker, husband, father, had been arrested for the murder of Edmund Ashford, a white CEO found stabbed in his downtown office. The state's evidence was a wall. Hayes' thumbprint on the knife handle. A Carolina Red cigarette butt 3 feet from the body. A janitor's eyewitness identification at 11:14 p.m. Sterling had spent 6 weeks turning Hayes from a man into a profile. Black. Prior burglary at 19, served and forgotten. Sterling would call it a pattern. Carter called it a boy's mistake older than the lawyer prosecuting it, the problem the state could not bury. Hayes had been clocked in on a freight line 40 miles north until 11 p.m. that night. The state said the timeline was tight but possible. Carter believed Hayes. Jocelyn believed him because Carter did. "Tell me about the jury again," Carter said. 11 white, 1 black. A retired postal worker named Beatrice Hollis. Sterling tried to strike her. Judge denied. Whitfield denied a strike. He denied the state's strike. He wanted her on. He thinks she's harmless. Carter wheeled himself to the window. Whitfield doesn't waste mercy. He keeps her so the verdict looks fair. Remember that. Walter Whitfield, 64. 22 years on the bench. Capital cases his specialty. Black defendants died in his courtroom at twice the state rate. The bar called him firm. Defense lawyers had other names. Jocelyn nodded. She'd grown up watching judges like Whitfield. She'd grown up watching them take her family. Carter rolled back to the desk. He pulled out a yellow legal pad and a single blue pen. "Cross-examination," he said. "What is it, child?" "A test of memory." "No, a test of one question." She had heard him say it 100 times. She still wrote it down. "You don't shout at a liar," Carter continued. "You don't trap him with theatrics. You hand him a rope and ask him to tie a knot he's already tied somewhere else. Then you show the jury both knots, same hand, same liar. Jocelyn paused her pen. And if you can't find the other knot, then you keep looking, day, night, until you find it, or until the jury comes back. A knock at the door. Maya Hayes stepped in. 41, tired eyes. A 6-year-old girl named Naomi pressed against her hip. "Mr. Carter," Maya said. "Naomi wanted to give you something." The little girl held out a folded drawing, 2 stick figures in court, a judge with a hammer. Underneath, in careful first-grade letters, "Bring Daddy home." Carter took it with both hands. He did not speak for a moment. "Naomi," he finally said, "your daddy's coming home. You hear me?" Maya covered her face. Jocelyn looked down at her own hands. After they left, Carter wheeled to the wall. He paused in front of the photograph he never explained. A young man in a navy suit, smiling. A handwritten caption beneath the frame. William Brooks, 1965 to 2003. Jocelyn stood beside him. Neither spoke. "You were 6 years old," Carter said. "I sat with your mother the night the state killed him. I promised I'd watch you grow up. I didn't tell her I'd walk you into Whitfield's courtroom." Jocelyn's throat tightened. "He doesn't know who I am, does he?" "No. He sees an intern. Black, female, young. He sees what he wants to see." She looked at her father's face. "Then I'll be exactly that, until the moment I'm not." Carter smiled. Small, tired, fierce. "That's the question, child. That's the one question." Outside on Magnolia Street, the morning sun broke through the oak leaves. 3 days from now, it would all begin. Day 1 of trial. Madison County Courthouse, courtroom 3B. The room was packed. The Ashford family in front rows behind the prosecution table. Reporters lined the back wall. Maya Hayes sat in the 3rd row with Naomi tucked against her ribs. Jocelyn could see her hands shaking from the defense table. Elijah Hayes sat in his borrowed suit with his back straight. He had not slept. The lines on his face had aged him 5 years. The bailiff called the court to order. Whitfield entered. Black robe, silver hair. A face that had practiced neutrality for 2 decades, but never learned warmth. "Be seated. State of Alabama versus Elijah Hayes. Capital murder. We will proceed to voir dire." Carter began with motions. He had filed 7. Whitfield denied 6 in succession before lunch. Motion to exclude the eyewitness identification. Denied. The janitor had identified Hayes from a single photograph at 2 a.m., 8 hours after the murder, while exhausted. Standard suggestive procedure. Whitfield called it within established protocol. Motion to suppress the cigarette butt. Denied. Carter argued chain of custody irregularities. Whitfield ruled the chain sufficiently documented. Motion to challenge for cause 1 juror. Denied. That juror had served on Whitfield's Golf Foundation board. Carter looked at Jocelyn after the 4th denial. He did not speak. He did not have to. Whitfield ruled, then turned to Sterling with the smallest of smiles, then turned to the defense table with the smallest of frowns. Sterling delivered his opening statement standing. He spoke without notes. Members of the jury. On the night of June 12th, Edmund Ashford, husband, father, philanthropist, and pillar of this community, was murdered in his own office. He was 61 years old. He had built his company from a single warehouse to 2,000 employees. He gave 8 figures every year to schools, hospitals, churches across this state. A juror in the 2nd row nodded. The man who killed him is sitting 20 feet from me. The man who killed him was, on that night, supposed to be on a freight line 40 miles away. The state will prove that he was not. The state will prove that he came back to this city, walked into Edmund Ashford's office, took a knife from his desk, and used it to take a life. Sterling paused. He turned toward Elijah Hayes. He looked at him for 1 full second. The defendant was arrested before he turned 20. The defendant has a documented pattern of presence at places he should not have been. The defendant left his thumbprint on the weapon. The defendant left a cigarette butt 3 feet from Mr. Ashford's body. 2 jurors crossed their arms. The evidence does not require interpretation. The evidence requires only the courage to see it for what it is. Sterling sat. The room held its breath. Carter wheeled forward. He could not stand. He had not stood in a courtroom since 1973. But his voice was the voice that had freed 23 men from death row over 40 years. Members of the jury, the state will tell you a story. Stories are easy. Truth is harder. We are not here to be persuaded by a story. We are here to weigh the truth. He looked at Beatrice Hollis. He held her eye for a heartbeat. Elijah Hayes was at work that night. His employer's records say so. His time card says so. His co-worker says so. The state will ask you to set those facts aside and trust a janitor who identified him in the dark 8 hours later after staring at one photograph for 20 seconds. The state will ask you to trust a cigarette butt that appeared in evidence 2 days after the body did. Carter paused. His chest tightened. He did not show it. Mr. Hayes is a husband. He is a father. He is the son of a Birmingham bus driver who worked 38 years without missing a shift. He is not a story. He is a man. The truth is not what the state wants. The truth is what happened. And the truth, members of the jury, will be heard. He wheeled back. Whitfield called the first witness for the prosecution. Detective Roland Cole. Cole stood, 6 feet, 200 pounds, silver mustache, 28 years in the Birmingham Police Department, the last 12 as a senior homicide detective. He took the stand the way a man takes a chair he owns. He raised his right hand. He swore the oath. Sterling walked him through procedure, the crime scene, the body, the arrival time, the first photographs. Then Sterling reached the question that mattered. Detective, what did you find on the floor of Mr. Ashford's office, 3 feet from the body? A cigarette butt. Carolina Reds, half smoked, filter intact. And in your professional opinion, what did the position of that butt indicate? It indicated that the smoker was standing close to the victim at the time of, or near the time of, death. How close? Approximately 1 arm's length. Sterling let it sit. And did you subsequently match that cigarette butt to the defendant? DNA was inconclusive due to environmental degradation. However, bite mark impressions on the filter were consistent with dental records on file for the defendant from a prior intake. A juror wrote something down. Jocelyn watched Cole's face. He answered each question with no pause. No glance at the ceiling, no, let me think. Every answer ready. Carter leaned toward her. His voice was so low she barely caught it. He's reciting. Listen to the rhythm. He's saying it the same way he said it before. Before when? I don't know yet. But he said this script before. Cole continued. The eyewitness corroboration. The fingerprint. The timeline. Sterling extracted every answer like a man pulling clean cards from a deck. Maya Hayes wept silently in the 3rd row. Naomi looked up at her with frightened eyes and asked, in a whisper Jocelyn could hear from the defense table, Mommy, why is the man saying bad things about Daddy? Maya leaned down to her ear. Daddy didn't do anything wrong. The lady up front is going to fix it. Naomi nodded once. She did not stop crying. Jocelyn felt her own eyes burn. She forced them dry. She looked at the photograph behind the bench, the official seal of Madison County. She had stood in this exact spot once before, 6 years old, holding her mother's hand, watching another judge, not Whitfield, sentence William Brooks to die. That judge had retired. That judge had died. The courtroom remained. The Bible on the witness stand was the same Bible her father had laid his hand on 22 years ago. The wood of the railing she now leaned against had absorbed her family's grief. She would not let it absorb Maya's. Sterling finished direct examination at 4:42 p.m. Whitfield recessed for the day. The jury filed out. Carter exhaled, his hand pressed against his sternum. He grimaced once. He saw Jocelyn watching. "Indigestion," he said. "Bad coffee." "Sam, tomorrow we cross Cole. I want you on the second chair. Take notes on every contradiction. I'll set the trap. You watch where his eyes go." Jocelyn nodded. Carter rolled toward the exit. He paused at the door. "And Jocelyn, bring your father's pen tomorrow. I want it on the table." He did not say why. She did not ask. Day 2, 9:02 a.m., courtroom 3B. Carter wheeled to the lectern with a manila folder on his lap. The folder held nothing important. Carter knew theater. The folder existed to be opened slowly. Jocelyn sat behind him at the defense table. Her father's pen lay across her legal pad. "Detective Cole," Carter said. "Good morning." "Counselor, yesterday you testified the cigarette butt was found 3 feet from the body." "Correct." 3 feet exactly, or 3 feet approximately? "Approximately." "How approximately?" Cole hesitated for the first time. "Within a foot, either direction." Carter opened the folder, closed it, made a note. "And the bite mark on the filter. You compared that to dental records from a prior intake?" "Correct." "How was that comparison performed?" "Forensic odontology unit." "Who in the unit?" "Dr. Eleanor Whitman." Carter looked up. He smiled. So did Jocelyn. Eleanor Whitman was Carter's protege. She had cleared 4 wrongful convictions in the last decade. The state had not realized she was about to be cross-examined. Carter continued. "Detective, in your 28 years on the force, how many capital cases have involved Carolina Red cigarettes as physical evidence?" Cole hesitated. "I'd have to check." Carter smiled. "We have time." He drew a breath to ask the next question. He stopped. His shoulder dipped. His hand jerked toward his chest. The water pitcher beside him tipped, slid, and shattered across the floor. The room broke. A juror shouted. Maya screamed. Jocelyn was on her feet before her chair stopped scraping. "Sam!" He hit the defense table face first. The exhibits scattered. The yellow legal pad slid into Jocelyn's shoes. The bailiff ran. The court clerk dialed 911. Sterling stood, unmoving, at the prosecution table. 2 EMTs arrived in under 4 minutes. They lifted Carter onto a gurney. His left hand opened and closed. His right side did not move. His eyes did not focus. Elijah Hayes did not move. He looked at the man who had believed in him. He whispered, "Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter, please." The bailiff put a hand on his shoulder. Jocelyn touched Carter's wrist. He could not see her. The gurney rolled out. The doors closed behind it. Whitfield gavelled the courtroom to order. "Be seated. The court will resume." Sterling, still standing, found his voice. "Your Honor, the state has no objection to a brief recess for medical attention, but we move that trial continue with co-counsel of record." Jocelyn rose. Her knees did not feel like hers. Your Honor, the defense respectfully requests a 48-hour continuance. Mr. Carter is incapacitated. Mr. Hayes is entitled to lead counsel. The defendant will lose his Sixth Amendment right. Miss Brooks, are you co-counsel of record? Your Honor, I'm an intern admitted under student practice rule. I am not. Are you or are you not co-counsel of record on the bar filing dated June 4th? Jocelyn looked at Whitfield, then at Sterling, then at Elijah Hayes, whose face had gone the color of paper. Yes, Your Honor, I am co-counsel of record. Then you will continue. Court schedule waits for no one. Your Honor, this is a capital case. With respect, I'm a second-year law student. The defendant's life is on the line. Whitfield removed his glasses. He cleaned them with a slow, deliberate motion. Then he replaced them. Then perhaps, Miss Brooks, you'll learn humility. Win this case, and I'll resign from this bench. The gallery laughed before they realized they were laughing. 3 reporters wrote it down. A juror covered her mouth. Sterling sat. The smile on his face was small. He had not asked for this. He had simply received it. Whitfield gavelled. Court is in recess until 9 a.m. tomorrow. Miss Brooks, you have 18 hours. Use them wisely. The jury filed out. The Ashford family filed out. Maya knelt by Elijah at the defense barrier and held his hand through the slats. Jocelyn stood alone at the defense table. Carter's legal pad lay open in front of her, ink smeared where his hand had dragged across it. She picked up her father's pen. She walked out of the courtroom. The hallway was full. Reporters, microphones. Beatrice Hollis from the Birmingham Star pushed forward. Miss Brooks, 18 hours. What's your move? Jocelyn did not stop walking. She did not answer. 8:30 p.m. The law offices of Carter and Associates. Jocelyn sat at Carter's desk. The desk lamp was the only light in the room. 600 case files surrounded her in stacks. 40 years of acquittals. None of them belonged to her father. Her phone rang. Maya's name. She answered. Jocelyn. Maya's voice was hoarse. How is Sam? Stable. ICU. They don't know if he'll wake up. A pause. Naomi keeps asking when Daddy's coming home. Jocelyn closed her eyes. Tell her soon. Can you really do this? Jocelyn did not answer for a long moment. Then she did. I'm going to do this. Maya did not say goodbye. Neither did Jocelyn. The line clicked off. Jocelyn turned to face the wall. The photograph hung at her eye level now. William Brooks, navy suit, 25 years old. Smiling, she had been 6. Her mother had dressed her in the only black dress she owned. They had ridden the bus to the prison. They had sat in a small room with a phone and a glass window. Her father had picked up the receiver. He had said, "Baby, I am so proud of you for being brave." He had not cried. Her mother had. 2 months later, he was gone. She had not been at the execution. They had not let her come. She had been 7. She had not understood the word until she was 12. She had understood her mother's silence much sooner. Jocelyn touched the glass over his face. Not this time. She said it once. The room held it. She turned to Carter's pad, page by page. The notes were small, careful, in pencil. Most were impeachment cues for Cole, questions Carter had been preparing. On the last page, near the bottom, 2 letters circled twice in red ink. C, a name beneath it, Cole, 2003. Beneath that, smaller, in the margin, Judge. The pencil tip beside the word had snapped clean off the paper. Jocelyn stared at the words. 22 years ago. The same year her father had been convicted in this same courtroom. She stood. She went to the file room. She did not turn on the light. She knew the way. The basement archive smelled of mildew and forgotten paper. She found the row by touch. State versus Brooks, 2003. Capital case files were kept under lock. She knew the lock. She found the box on the bottom shelf. Manila. Cracked tape. State versus William Brooks, 2003. Capital. Closed file. Execution carried out. She carried it to the table under the basement's single bare bulb. The cardboard was soft from years of damp. The corner crumbled in her hand. She opened it. The evidence log was the first sheet inside. She read it twice, then a third time. She did not blink. Item 17. 1 cigarette butt, brand Carolina Reds, half smoked, filter intact. Recovered 3 feet from the body of Lucille Hartley. Lucille Hartley, white, 26. Killed in her kitchen on a Tuesday night in May. Her father had been at his second shift at the bus depot. 3 witnesses, time-stamped. None of them had mattered. Same brand, same distance. Jocelyn's hand did not shake. Her hand was still. She turned the page. Investigating Officer, Junior Detective Roland Cole, Badge 4112. Assistant District Attorney, Walter Whitfield. She read those 2 names 3 times. She wrote them on the back of her hand in blue ink. Lead prosecutor on the brief, lead detective on the scene. 22 years ago, the same hands. She kept reading. The state had argued that William Brooks left work, drove 11 miles to the Hartley home, killed her, and drove back without his co-workers noticing his absence. The state had won. Forensic photographs were in a separate envelope. The plastic had yellowed. She tipped them out. Glossy 4x5 prints. The murder weapon, a kitchen knife, the blood pattern, the body in profile, then the cigarette butt. 3 angles. Macro lens. Filter clearly visible. Bite mark impression visible on the filter paper. Jocelyn pulled out her phone. She opened the evidence portal she had accessed during trial prep. State versus Hayes. Exhibit 14. Cigarette butt, Carolina Reds, 3 feet from the body of Edmund Ashford. Forensic photograph attached. She held both images side by side, one on the phone, one on the table. She did not breathe. The filter on the 2003 butt had 2 narrow bite marks. 2 upper incisors angled approximately 5 degrees from center, with a hairline gap between them. The filter on the Ashford butt had 2 narrow bite marks. 2 upper incisors angled approximately 5 degrees from center, with a hairline gap between them. They were not similar. They were the same. 2 people do not have identical dental impressions, 22 years apart, on cigarette butts found 3 feet from murder victims in the same county. One person planted both. Jocelyn sat down. The basement was very quiet. She thought about William Brooks. She thought about Elijah Hayes. She thought about a junior detective in 2003 who needed a closed case to make rank, and an ambitious ADA who needed a conviction to launch his bench career. She thought about her father picking up the phone behind a glass window. She did not cry. Jocelyn stood. She put both hands flat on the table. She did not let herself shake. She walked back upstairs. She turned on the printer in Carter's office. She printed both images at full resolution. She laid them on Carter's desk under the lamp. 2 cigarette butts, 22 years apart. Same brand, same distance from the body, same bite mark. She picked up her father's pen in Carter's notebook, beneath the words, Cole 2003. She wrote 3 lines. Same hand, same planter, same lie. She closed the notebook. She slid the photographs into a manila folder. She set the folder on top of her father's pen. The sun would be up in 4 hours. She had a cross-examination to prepare. 9:01 a.m. The courtroom was already full when Jocelyn entered. She wore the same suit. She carried 2 manila folders. She had slept 90 minutes on the couch in Carter's office. Maya was in the 3rd row. Naomi clutched the same drawing she had given Carter 3 days ago. The reporter Beatrice Hollis sat 1 row behind Maya. The Birmingham Star photographer had a wide-angle lens trained on the defense table. Elijah Hayes turned as Jocelyn took her seat. His eyes asked one question. "I'm ready," she said. "Trust me." He nodded. He did not say a word. Whitfield entered. The room rose. The room sat. State of Alabama versus Elijah Hayes. The court understands lead counsel has been hospitalized. Miss Brooks, are you prepared to proceed? Jocelyn stood. "Yes, Your Honor." The defense moves to recall Detective Roland Cole for cross-examination. Sterling rose immediately. Objection. Detective Cole completed direct examination yesterday. Mr. Carter was halfway through cross when the incident occurred. The state has no objection to the defense completing the remaining time, but a full recall is excessive and prejudicial. Whitfield looked pleased. "I'm inclined to agree. Miss Brooks, you may complete Mr. Carter's cross-examination within his original allotment. You have approximately 40 minutes left." Jocelyn did not sit. "Your Honor, Alabama Rule of Evidence 611B. Defense has come into possession of newly discovered impeachment material that directly bears on Detective Cole's credibility. Failure to permit examination would deny the defendant his Sixth Amendment right to confront the witness." Whitfield's jaw moved. "And what is this newly discovered material?" "Your Honor, the state has not yet been served. I'm prepared to mark it as Exhibit B for defense and tender it now." Sterling's eyebrows went up. "Defense Exhibit B?" Jocelyn lifted 1 manila folder. "Yes. Your Honor, I move to admit Defense Exhibit B subject to authentication during cross-examination." Whitfield stared at her. The longest 5 seconds Jocelyn had ever experienced. "Approach." She walked to the bench. Sterling followed. Jocelyn slid the folder across the polished wood. Whitfield opened it. He saw the 2 photographs. His face did not change. Only his fingers. They tightened around the edge of the folder for half a second. Then they relaxed. Sterling looked at the photos. He frowned. He looked at Jocelyn. He looked at Whitfield. "Your Honor, I'd like time to review." "Denied. Counsel, return to your stations." Jocelyn walked back. Her knees did not shake. Sterling looked at Cole. Cole looked at Whitfield. "Detective Cole," Whitfield said, "please return to the stand." Cole did. He looked smaller this morning. Cole had heard her cite an old case file. He had not yet heard which file. The folder on the defense table made him look at it twice. Jocelyn approached. She held only a yellow legal pad and her father's pen. The manila folder remained on the defense table, in plain view of the jury. "Detective Cole, good morning." "Counselor, yesterday you testified you found a Carolina red cigarette butt approximately 3 feet from the body of Edmund Ashford. Is that still your testimony?" "Yes." "And you've testified in capital murder cases before, haven't you?" "Yes." "Could you tell the jury approximately how many?" Cole shifted. "Maybe 20 over my career. 20 capital cases. Quite a record." Jocelyn paused. She let the jury count. "And in how many of those 20 capital cases did you find a Carolina red cigarette butt approximately 3 feet from the body?" Sterling stood. Objection, relevance. Whitfield opened his mouth. Jocelyn cut in before he could speak. Your Honor, this question goes directly to the witness's pattern of evidence collection. If the answer is 1, it is unremarkable. If the answer is 2, it is a coincidence the jury is entitled to weigh. A juror, Beatrice Hollis, the postal worker, not the reporter, leaned forward. Whitfield's hand hovered above his gavel. Then he set it down. Overruled. The witness will answer. Sterling sat slowly. Cole's hand moved to the wooden rail of the witness chair. His knuckles whitened. I don't recall. You don't recall? Specifically, no. Detective, you have testified in approximately 20 capital cases in Madison County alone. The recovery of a half-smoked Carolina Red cigarette butt is, you would agree, a distinctive piece of physical evidence? Yes? Cole said nothing more. The silence pulled the room tighter. Distinctive enough that you would remember it? Yes or no? Cole did not answer. Jocelyn waited 4 full seconds. She looked once at Maya, who was leaning forward in the gallery. Then she lifted the question with deliberate calm. Detective, would the state of Alabama versus William Brooks, 2003, refresh your memory? A ripple ran through the jury box. A man in the back row sat up straight. Beatrice Hollis put down her pen and stared at the witness. Cole's face went the color of wax. He looked at the prosecution table. Sterling looked at him with new attention. Cole looked at the bench. Whitfield's gavel struck the wood once. Hard. The sound did not steady him. His voice came out half a step too high. Recess. 15 minutes. Counsel in chambers. He rose before the bailiff could call the room to order. Sterling stood, slowly, looking at the manila folder still resting on the defense table. Jocelyn turned to face the gallery. Maya was on her feet. Naomi was holding up the drawing. Jocelyn lifted one finger. Wait. Then she walked toward chambers. The chamber's hallway was empty, except for 2 bailiffs. Sterling caught up to Jocelyn before she reached the elevator. Miss Brooks. She turned. What are you doing, intern? I'm doing my job. You're poking a hornet's nest. You realize that. I'm aware of what I'm doing, Mr. Sterling. Sterling lowered his voice. He stepped closer. He was not a tall man, but he was the kind who knew where to stand. Listen to me. I can read a courtroom. So can the judge. We are about to have a problem that exceeds your client. Drop this line. Drop it now. Mr. Hayes is innocent. Mr. Hayes is a defendant in a death penalty case in Madison County. Whatever you think you found, you don't have the credentials to make it stick. And if you keep pushing, you will lose. He will die. You will be disbarred before you ever take a bar exam. Jocelyn did not move. There is another path, Sterling said. I'm authorized to offer a plea. 25 to life. Parole eligible at 15. Your client lives. He goes home in a decade. He sees his daughter graduate. He held the offer out like a stone in his palm. Jocelyn looked past him, down the hallway, toward the photograph she could not see, the one in Carter's office of William Brooks at 25. She thought about Naomi. She thought about the drawing. She thought about the cigarette butt photographed 22 years ago beside a body she had never seen. Mr. Sterling, she said, take your offer back to your office. I'll see you when court reconvenes. She turned. She walked. Sterling did not follow. She rode the elevator down to the lobby. She stood by the courthouse fountain. She pulled out her phone. Dr. Eleanor Whitman picked up on the second ring. Eleanor, it's Jocelyn Brooks, Sam Carter's intern. I heard about Sam. How is he? Stable. I need a favor. The kind of favor that has to happen in the next 4 hours. A pause. Talk. I'm sending you 2 forensic photographs. 2 cigarette filters. Bite mark impressions. State versus William Brooks, 2003. State versus Hayes, current. I need a written analysis. I need it sworn. I need it before tomorrow's session. Sam's case. Sam's case. Send the files. Sending now. Jocelyn ended the call. She uploaded the 2 photographs. She walked back across the lobby. She passed a bench where Beatrice Hollis was already typing. The reporter looked up. Miss Brooks, a moment. Briefly. Your face is on every local feed in the state. The clip of you walking back to the defense table after the recess is already trending. What was the question you asked the detective? Jocelyn did not answer immediately. Beatrice waited. Print this, Jocelyn said. Tomorrow morning at 9, Detective Cole will be back on the stand. The defense will present 1 piece of physical evidence. The jury will see what the state has hidden for 22 years. 22 years? 22, Beatrice wrote. Off the record, she said. Are you William Brooks' daughter? Jocelyn paused. Print whatever you want. But Whitfield doesn't know yet. I'd appreciate it if he didn't learn from the morning edition. Then he won't, Jocelyn nodded once. She walked out into the parking lot. Upstairs in chambers, Walter Whitfield closed the door behind him. He waited until his clerk left the room. He picked up the desk phone. It's me, the Brooks file, the Carolina Reds evidence. I need to know exactly what we destroyed in 2003 and exactly what survived. A pause. He listened. I don't care how. Bury it. Today. He set the receiver down. His hand stayed on the phone for a long time. He was no longer the only one with something to lose. Just past 7. Carter's office. Jocelyn's laptop pinged. New email. Dr. Eleanor Whitman. Subject line. Match confirmed. Sworn affidavit attached. Jocelyn opened the attachment. 3 pages. Forensic odontology comparison. 2 bite mark impressions. Same dental arch, same incisor angle, same gap, same wearing pattern at the distal edges. Conclusion. The impressions on both filters were made by the same set of teeth, within a statistical certainty exceeding 99.6%. Signed and notarized. Jocelyn closed her eyes for 1 moment. She let herself breathe. She opened them. She printed 3 copies. Tomorrow, the state would meet the question Carter had billed her to ask. She would not be the one shaking. Day 3. 9 a.m. exactly. The courtroom was beyond full. Reporters lined every wall. The bailiff had stopped admitting spectators 10 minutes earlier. 3 news vans were parked outside. Maya Hayes sat in the 3rd row, Naomi pressed against her side. Beatrice Hollis sat in the front of the press box. The morning edition of the Birmingham Star lay folded on her lap. The headline ran above the fold. 22 years. Whitfield entered. He moved more slowly than he had on day 1. His robe seemed heavier. Be seated. State of Alabama versus Elijah Hayes. Detective Cole, please return to the stand. Cole stood from his seat in the gallery. He did not look at the jury. He did not look at Sterling. He took the oath again with a smaller voice. Jocelyn rose from the defense table. She did not carry the legal pad. She did not carry the pen. She carried 1 manila folder. Detective Cole, she said, I have 1 question. The room stilled. Jocelyn turned to the jury. She moved to an easel set in the well of the court. She opened the folder. She placed 2 enlarged photographs on the easel, side by side, facing the jury. Photograph 1, a cigarette butt, 3 angles, macro lens. recovered 3 feet from the body of Lucille Hartley, Birmingham, May 2003. Photograph 2, a cigarette butt. 3 angles, macro lens. Recovered 3 feet from the body of Edmund Ashford, Birmingham, March of this year. Beatrice Hollis, the postal worker, leaned forward. Her hand went to her chest. Jocelyn turned back to Cole. Detective Cole, can you explain to this jury why the bite mark pattern on this Carolina red cigarette butt, collected at the William Brooks murder scene in 2003, is forensically identical to the bite mark pattern on this Carolina red cigarette butt collected at the Edmund Ashford murder scene 3 months ago? The courtroom did not breathe. Then it did. A gasp went through the gallery in one breath, 3 rows deep. The courtroom artist's pen slipped and hit the floor. A juror reached for the railing. Maya Hayes covered her mouth with both hands. Cole did not answer. He looked at the jury. He looked at the easel. He looked at Whitfield. Sterling stood. He opened his mouth. He closed it. He stayed standing because he did not know what else to do. Jocelyn waited 5 seconds. Then she lifted Eleanor Whitman's affidavit from the manila folder. Detective Cole, I have here a sworn forensic analysis by Dr. Eleanor Whitman of the State Forensic Identification Unit. Dr. Whitman concludes, to a certainty exceeding 99.6%, that the impressions on both filters were made by the same set of teeth. She lifted her gaze. Either 2 different smokers, 22 years apart, have identical dental arches, identical incisor angles, an identical hairline gap, and an identical wearing pattern at the distal edges. Or one man, planting evidence in capital cases, smoked them both. Cole's hands gripped the wooden rail. Detective Cole, whose teeth made those bite marks? Cole opened his mouth. He closed it. He looked at Whitfield with an expression that asked for help. Whitfield did not return the look. Cole leaned toward the microphone. His voice cracked. I want a lawyer. A second wave of gasps. A juror said the word no out loud. Sterling sat down. He did not look at his own table. Whitfield, ashen, lifted his gavel halfway. Detective Cole, you do not get to invoke privilege from the witness stand without. Jocelyn turned to face the bench. Her voice was even. Your Honor, the defense moves to admit Exhibit C. Whitfield's gavel hand stilled in the air. Jocelyn lifted a third document from the manila folder. She held it up so the jury could see the letterhead. It was a State of Alabama prosecution form, dated April 8, 2003. The case caption read, State versus William Brooks, capital murder. At the bottom, in dark ink, was a single signature authorizing the admission of evidence item 17, the Carolina red cigarette butt, into the state's case. The signature read, Walter Whitfield, Assistant District Attorney. Jocelyn turned the document toward the bench. Your Honor, this is your signature, isn't it? The gallery did not gasp. The gallery made a sound that was not a gasp. It was lower, longer, and it carried the weight of recognition. Sterling sat back hard against his chair. Whitfield's gavel hand shook. The black juror, Beatrice Hollis, the postal worker, did not move. She watched the judge with eyes that had waited a very long time to watch a judge this way. Whitfield did not raise his gavel. Jocelyn lowered her voice. Your Honor, the defense moves for an immediate recess and a hearing under Rule 60 on prosecutorial misconduct, evidence tampering, and the immediate recusal of the presiding judge. The clerk stood without being asked. The bailiff radioed the second floor. 2 federal agents walked through the doors at the back. They wore plain dark suits. They had been waiting since 8:30. Cole saw them first. His face did not change. It had nowhere else to go. The lead agent crossed the well of the court. He stopped at the witness stand. "Detective Roland Cole, you're under arrest." The federal agents read Cole his rights. His wrists clicked into the cuffs. The courtroom watched in silence. No one stood. No one moved. The bailiff cleared the well. Whitfield rose from the bench. He removed his robe with both hands. He folded it once. He placed it on his chair. He left the courtroom through the rear door without a word. By 11:30 a.m., the Madison County Clerk had assigned Judge Patricia Ellis to the case as substitute presiding judge. Judge Ellis convened an emergency hearing at 1 o'clock. She heard Jocelyn's motions. She granted them in order. Mistrial denied. Whitfield's prior rulings vacated. Cole's testimony struck. The case would proceed to the jury on a single question. Did the state have any remaining admissible evidence linking Elijah Hayes to the murder of Edmund Ashford? Sterling could not answer the question. By 4:30 p.m., closing arguments were complete. The jury withdrew to deliberate. They returned in 42 minutes. Foreman, a retired electrician from Madison County, Beatrice Hollis, the postal worker, watched the foreman read the verdict. On the charge of capital murder in the first degree, we, the jury, find the defendant, Elijah Hayes, not guilty. The word "not" did its work in the silence before the sentence finished. A sound went up that Jocelyn did not expect. Half the gallery wept openly. Maya sank into the bench, hands over her face. And Naomi did not understand for a full second, and then she understood and ran. She ran past the bailiff. She ran past the railing. She ran past the empty witness stand. She reached the defense table. Elijah turned. He caught her in his arms. He picked her up the way only a father picks up his child after the world has tried to take her. Elijah Hayes wept against his daughter's hair. Maya reached them at the railing. The three of them did not let go. Jocelyn watched from the defense table. She did not cry. She closed Carter's notebook. She put her father's pen in her jacket pocket. By 6 o'clock, Walter Whitfield issued a one-line statement to the press. "I am resigning from the bench, effective immediately." He did not say why. He did not have to. Federal indictments would follow within 90 days. Cole on 6 counts, Whitfield on 3, including obstruction and conspiracy. Sterling kept his job for now. The bar opened an inquiry that would last 18 months. That night, Jocelyn drove to the hospital. Carter was conscious. The right side of his face still drooped. He could not yet speak in full sentences. The television above his bed played silently. The Birmingham Star headline rolled across the bottom of the screen. "Brooks, daughter wins Hayes verdict. Judge, Whitfield resigns." A tear rolled down Carter's cheek. Jocelyn sat beside him. She took out a folder. She told him about the verdict, about Naomi running, about the agents, about Whitfield folding his robe and walking out the back. Carter listened without speaking. Once, he closed his eyes and nodded. Once, he smiled with the side of his mouth that still worked. "I drafted the petition," she said. "Innocence Project. Posthumous exoneration of William Brooks. I need co-counsel of record. Same firm, same fight." Carter's right hand could not move. He used his left. The signature was crooked. The signature was his. She closed the folder. "Sleep, Sam." He did. She stayed until he did. 8 weeks later, State Capitol, Montgomery, the Alabama Supreme Court issued a unanimous order. State versus William Brooks, 2003. Capital conviction vacated, judgment reversed, official records to reflect exoneration based on prosecutorial misconduct and fabricated evidence. The plaque was installed in the lobby of the Madison County Courthouse the following Tuesday. Bronze, plain. It read, "In memory of William Brooks, 1965 to 2003. Convicted in error, exonerated, remembered." That afternoon, Jocelyn drove to Oak Hill Cemetery. She walked between the rows. She knew the way. She had known it since she was 6. She knelt at her father's stone. She placed her father's blue pen on the granite. She placed a single Carolina red cigarette, wrapped in plastic, never lit, beside it. The truth and the lie, together at last. She placed the printed Supreme Court order in the center. She whispered, "I got him, Dad. I got both of them." The wind moved through the oaks above her. A cardinal landed on the gravestone beside hers. It did not fly away. Jocelyn stayed until the sun went down. 3 years later, the firm's brass nameplate had been refinished. The letters now read, "Carter, Whitman, and Brooks, attorneys at law." Samuel Carter still came in on Tuesdays. He could not speak in court anymore. He did not have to. He sat in on every intake. He still wrote in pencil. He still kept one yellow legal pad on his lap. 8 wrongful convictions had been overturned through the firm's pro bono unit. All of them tied to evidence planted by former Detective Roland Cole over the course of 26 years. Cole was serving 30 years in federal prison. Walter Whitfield never went back to the bench. He took the plea his prosecutor offered him on day 40 of the federal trial. 4 years, disbarred, stripped of pension. Sterling lost his bar license 2 years after Hayes walked free. He never ran for office again. Elijah Hayes returned to the railroad. Maya started a community legal clinic in the back of the Birmingham AME Church. Naomi turned 9. On career day, she told her class she wanted to be a lawyer, like the lady who brought her father home. Jocelyn was led defense in 19 capital cases over those 3 years. She did not lose one. She kept her father's pen on her desk. Beside it sat a small bronze copy of the courthouse plaque. She still went to Oak Hill on the anniversary every spring. She brought 1 Carolina Reds, still wrapped, still never lit. She still whispered the same words. The lesson of Jocelyn Brooks is the lesson Samuel Carter spent 50 years trying to teach his students. The system is heavy. The lies of power are well funded. Most days the truth arrives later than it should. But a single question, asked at the right moment by someone the room has decided to underestimate, can unmake decades of lies in a single afternoon. If this story moved you, share it with someone who has ever been told they don't belong. Drop a comment below. What is one moment in your life when you stood your ground while everyone else told you to sit down? And subscribe so the next story finds you the day it goes live. The truth is patient, but it is also loud. When it finally speaks, the whole room hears it.